Hi, everybody. We are going to talk about The Lord of Blackthorne by Jason Kingsley. This book was published just last year in 2025, so not an old book at all. This is historical fiction. Look at that dragon. Isn't that cool? And this is the front. I think you saw that already. This story is about a young knight who is gifted an estate and becomes a lord. And all he has to do to receive that gift is help the king win over a place called Gorestone. So there is a lord of Gorestone who is defiant of the king. He doesn't like the king. He wants to be the ruler. And I'm like, what kind of rank are you? You're just a lord? Are you a duke? You have to think about like the hierarchy of nobility, right? So the duke is the highest that you can go before you're like the prince or the king or the ruler, right? A lord is pretty low, but it just depends on the rank and why they're calling you lord. So anyway, that was a side quest. Sidetrack, not a side quest, right? Sidetrack. Squirrel. Yeah, that's me. That's me. I like tangents, but you know that already, right? Let's get back to the story. The Lord of Blackthorne. And this young knight, actually, all the knights in the company of the king are there to try to prevent the Lord of Gorestone from, not from doing anything. So, have you ever lived in an HOA where you have to have permission to do anything to your house, right? So, kind of the same thing is happening here. The Lord of Gorestone built a tower, so like a defensive tower, one that he could use to prevent people from breaking into his property, his castle, and he didn't have permission from the king to do it. So the king and a retinue of soldiers show up at Gorestone's house, at the Gorestone castle, as a show of force to get the Lord of Gorestone to say, my bad, I should have asked permission. I didn't. I get it. Is it okay that I have this tower now? But Gorestone had other thoughts in mind. Gorestone was like, no, I'm calling him Gorestone. I don't know if that's what his actual name is, but so we can keep track of these people. Gorestone is like, yeah, whatever, dude. I don't like you. I don't care that you don't like that I built this tower on my property. I don't care about it. And so the king is like, all right, if anybody can get the castle to fall, then the castle's yours. And so the knights are all trying to figure out, and all the soldiers trying to figure out what to do. The king sent this young knight that the story is about to try to find a weakness. And he did. And he managed to bring Gorestone to his knees, if you will. And I mean, there's a process, and it takes you through the process. And then he wins a castle. Only it's not the castle that he thinks he's winning. Like the king said, you can win this castle, but then the king reneged and said, no, you'll win whatever castle I tell you have. And this is a young knight who is very, very, he believes in the knight's oaths. He cannot stand liars, but of course he's in a position where he can't say liar, right? He can't do that because this is the king he's talking about, and if he says you're a liar, he's going to be stripped of his knighthood, which is what he's proud of. He's proud of becoming a knight. Yeah, so it's his adventures with his new property, and the property is I'm trying to say Blackthorne or Blackstone, and it's Blackthorne. Yes, I can read. And about what happens with him and this new property that he is gifted. And so he goes about, the property is decrepit. It's terrible. The whole place is falling down. It's not a place for, a new lord to actually live. There's no place for him to sleep. He sleeps on the floor, which he's fine because he's a soldier. So he's not uppity at all. He's like, this is what I've been doing in, campaigns with the king. This is what we do. I'm not above sleeping on the floor. I'm not above sleeping outside. I'm not above eating porridge or whatever, poor man's food. I'm not above that. And so he's a very honorable knight. I enjoyed the story, and I don't want to go in and give everything away, but there are different sets of people that Blackthorne meets up with. Of course, there are the villagers that have gone without a lord for a very long time, probably going on a decade, maybe more, and they have survived by themselves. They don't really need a lord. And what's really nice is they haven't had to pay any taxes to a lordship. So it's kind of like, are these people going to be cool with this new guy here saying, I'm the Lord, hi, pay your taxes, right? So we don't know. He doesn't know if they're going to accept that or not. And when he goes and introduces himself to the village, they're very shocked. They don't believe him. Like, the Lord of Blackthorne is dead. Who are you? You just some guy that shows up and says, hi, I'm the new Lord. But he has the paperwork and he has to prove himself and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so he meets the villagers. And in the story, there are outlaws that are in the woods, and so the king puts him in there because he did such a good job with the castle, the Gorestone Castle, that he wants his reasoning for gifting Blackthorne to this young knight is to help control the outlaws and the Westerners. So the Westerners are like a Viking-like people. The book didn't call them Vikings, but when we were introduced to them, that's what they seemed like to me. They were like Vikings. And then you had the outlaws, and the outlaws reminded me of Robin Hood and his merry men. I mean, that's what it reminded me of. It's really strange because these people are not who the now Blackthorne expected them to be, or what he was told they were. It turned out completely different. Is there truth to the reputations? Yes, there's truth to the reputations, but they aren't as hard to negotiate and deal with as he was led to believe. It was mainly fear, and that's on both sides. So on the king side and on the outlaw side and the Viking-like people side, the Westerners. As you can see, I have some notes, some tabs in this book. This is probably not going to be the first time you see that I tabbed up a book. I don't usually do that, but when I run into things that I'm like, what? Sometimes I will tab the book just because I want to remember what it was that I was concerned about. Before getting there is a map. So the book does have a map in it. And I enjoy that. I don't know if you remember that from my very first book review, but I love fantasy books that have fantasy, historical fiction, whatever, books that have maps in them, because I kind of like to see the terrain. I'm weird that way. But there were some grammatical, or I don't know if it's grammatical. There's just some errors in here, like using plurals for... gosh, now all my English training has gone away. I can't remember what the proper words are. But some of the plurals that belong to a... so I can't math in public. Apparently I can't English in public either. It's like the tenses don't match up, if you will. And I'll give you an example. There are some things in here where they do... my puppies are in the room, so if you hear some crying, that's because they're in the room with me and they want attention. Back to the story. When you use dialogue in a book, and this may be irritating me because I noticed it more after a video that I saw about how people write books and editing. In currently or more recently published books, particularly through the use of AI. When you use dialogue in a book, you don't have to say, he said, she said, he said, she said, they said, he said, blah, blah, blah. Especially when there's a conversation. So like it starts with Bob says this, then Phil says this, right? So that you set up who's talking. And then the next set of dialogue you're assuming is Bob again, right? If it wasn't, then it would say Phil continued, right? Um, so that kind of bothers me. Particularly, there's this one place where Blackthorne says something, and it goes, said Blackthorne, then added something, and right after he said that something, it said Blackthorne. We already know he's talking because you just said he added something, so we know it's him. If he was interrupted by the person he was talking to, we would have said that this person interrupted him. So that was kind of annoying. I saw that a lot, but I didn't tab them all out. I do have little notes in there. It didn't take me out of the story. It just was like, yeah, I know he's talking. Why are you telling me that again? There is an individual in this story that that Blackthorne meets. His name is Osga, Osga, and there's a story behind him as well. One of them involves saving a woman. The story about saving the woman and who the woman was never revealed to us. And then all of a sudden, Blackthorne knows about it and is telling it back to Oscar. So this is why you saved so-and-so. But we were never told that. So it kind of jumped from they saved a random woman to this is the person that you saved. So I was like, wait, did they tell us this already? Now, maybe I have to go back and look and reread that part. Maybe I read it too fast. I don't know. I just think there was some issues with continuity and some AI, or not, maybe not AI stuff, but some editing stuff that got me a little confused. I do pay attention to things like that in a story. If they tell me something that was a mystery and all of a sudden the mystery is known, but we don't know how we got to know the mystery, that annoys me. I just like to know what it was. Here's an example of the grammar, the plurals not matching. On page 182, it says the seasons seems to touch this place. The seasons seems. Wouldn't it be the seasons seem? So that annoyed me because I was like, wait, am I reading that whole sentence wrong? Because sometimes they'll have a sentence and you start reading it like you expect it to be a certain way. And then you have to read it a couple times to go, oh, that's how this sentence was meant to be read. Well, I read that one several times and they're not saying something different. It's okay, though. I'm not mad at this book. I enjoyed it. So another page, Osga is telling some stuff to Blackthorne, and it says that he looks at the soft ground, and then he says, they're not used to the soft ground. You could have just said that he looked at the soft ground, or he looked at the ground and then said they're not used to the ground, or they're not used to the soft ground. We don't have to say soft ground twice. We know he's talking about the ground. They're not used to the topography, the murkiness of the land that they're on. So there is some stuff that happens in here where Blackthorne and his people, his new village, get attacked because yeah, I'm not going to give it away like I sometimes do. I'm trying not to do that anymore. But they come up with a unique system of communication. So there's a big bridge that goes from the town over to where Blackthorne's castle is. I mean, there's another bridge into the castle area, but there's a big bridge that goes over a major thoroughfare. And this is how Blackthorne and his villagers were going to keep up with who's coming. Since they know they're going to be attacked, they have to communicate. Are they here yet? Are they here yet? Without having to have somebody constantly, running up and down the land to look. So they've got outposts on the bridge, and then they have a guy up in the castle above the drawbridge. And so there's flag system that they developed. So the flags mean certain things. So if this flag goes up, it means they're 2 hours away. If this flag goes up, they're near the bridge. If this flag goes up, they're on us, right? I would think as an enemy looking across, or even as a defensive position, if you watch your enemy coming at you wouldn't they be watching to see what you're doing as well? And wouldn't they notice these flags doing this thing? So, yeah, it was a good idea. I like the idea. It's no different than probably what modern military does, but I would think that the enemy knows and would soon figure out what the flag system means so that they could adjust their ambush methods or their attack. But maybe not. Maybe not. But I was just curious. I was like, wouldn't they notice that the flags are changing? Like, are they just looking straight in front of them and not looking up or down or anything like that? There's a lot of like incomplete sentences, where not incomplete sentences, but like partial sentences. So, like a sentence is Bob went to the store. Okay, right? Bob went to the store. Great, Bob went to the store. But this is like Bob went to the store, period, bought eggs, period, bought milk, period. Is kind of what's happening in here. So the sentence would work better if it said Bob went to the store and bought milk and eggs, right? But there is a point in here where it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's the whole seasons seems thing. At one point, everybody is getting ready for the attack. It's imminent now. And it says mail coats were put on. So like the chain mail that they use to protect themselves from swords and arrows and all that. Those are put on, period. Swords belted, period. Helmets, straps, tightened, period. Helmets, straps, or helmet straps? So that was annoying to me. I'm not mad at Mr. Kingsley at all. I think that this is just an editing thing. And maybe you know how you edit, sometimes you skim over because you're on like autocorrect, your brain autocorrect stuff. So the outlaws are led by some guy that they call Jack. So he introduced himself to Blackthorne as Jack, and Jack is very quippy. He's very humorous. He's funny. He reminds me of a sarcastic Robin Hood. So if you see, what was that called? Men in Tights, I think, that had Carrie Elways in it. I think that's the name of it. We'll put it somewhere up here so you can see it when we edit. But very quippy and very sarcastic. Like I'm leaving now, and then Blackthorne's like, "Wait, are you leaving? I'm leaving now. My back is turned to you, duh." That kind of thing. But all of a sudden, Blackthorne is talking like him. So it's like, you weren't ever talking like this at all at any point. Even with Jack, even when you talked to the Vikings, you didn't talk like this at all. None of your dialogue was like this. And now all of a sudden it's like it, and it doesn't match the character. So I don't know what happened there. So that was kind of annoying. I was like, he's not that quippy unless all of a sudden he's, feeling better about his position. I don't know. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm back. Is it working? Yeah, it's working. Yay! So yeah, that didn't make sense to me. And there's this one sentence that is just, I read it and I understood what it was saying, but it was like 50 words long. It's like, why is this sentence should be broken up? So it was hard to read what was being described there. And at one point, Jack and his merry men save the skin of Blackthorne. And they're invited into the castle area where they are offered refreshments and stuff like that. Hospitality. Here's a hot meal, get some rest and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, Jack and Blackthorne are off by themselves. And I guess the merry men are just hanging out, not doing anything. Like typically, they're waiting for orders from Jack. But we don't see Jack give them any orders or say anything to them. He just takes off with Blackthorne wherever Blackthorne wanted him to go. And we don't hear about the merry men until it's over. You guys, I enjoyed this story. I really, really, really did. This knight he was under some kind of magic spell because his butt was saved so many times. And there's a bit of magic associated with this. Not like, it's like, I think they call them the old ways in this book. So you have like modern religion, modern in this period, but you also have the old ways, the way people used to believe, in the old gods or whatever. So there's a little bit of that happening, and I think that's what saved Jack, or not Jack, but Blackthorne in his adventures and misadventures. He's got a lot to learn, and he's learning, and this book does delve into that. What are there any good things about this book? Yeah, it is obvious that Mr. Kingsley is very well versed in horse culture or horse care. He's well versed in medieval armor and wartime tactics, and that showed through here. But it wasn't so much that you were bored. Like, you may have read the book Jurassic Park. So I saw the movie, and then I tried to read the book after, and it was one of those books that I didn't finish. And the reason I didn't finish it was because I couldn't get past the really, really, really scientific biology stuff. Like, I didn't care. I didn't care how you can cross these things and do this thing and take that thing and do this thing and talk about cells breaking up and stuff like that. I'm like, this is not a biology class. Okay, I get the idea. They did something, right? This book was not like that. This book was just very, just casually remarked about how Blackthorne treated his horses and his animals, how he communicated with them, how he dealt with other people, the stuff that he wore, what the purpose of the stuff he wore had, and that sort of thing. The story is very good. It flowed nicely. I don't think there was a minute where it was boring at all. The stuff that I talked about, these little tabby things, that's just me. That's just me. I just wanted to point them out to you if you were expecting, a book to be perfect. It's not going to be. A person can't necessarily catch everything because, like I said, our brains have this autocorrect function sometimes. But editors are highly paid, and this is what they're paid to do, is to check and make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be. So some of the sentences, some of the mismatched verbs, some of the way that they talked about stuff, that annoyed me. But I'm like that with almost every book that I read. Sometimes I don't ever notice it, but for whatever reason I did in this book, and it may be because that video that I watched was fairly recent. But it's not a big deal. Not a big deal. I enjoyed the book. Okay, those sentences, the stuff that I talked about at these tabby things, are not going to keep you from enjoying the book. Why do I keep y'all? If you want to read this book, go to your library, check it out. If you want to buy it straight off the bat, you're welcome to. I'll have all of that stuff down in the description for you. But check out your library, see if you want to buy this book and add another historical fiction / kind of fantasy in your library, your personal library. Y'all, be kind to yourself, be kind to each other. All right, everyone goes through stuff differently. Okay, so just be nice to each other. There's no reason to be mean. And down in the comments and in your actual world, be nice. Tell me what you're reading. Did you read this book? Did you enjoy it? If you did, let me know. If you didn't, let me know. I would love to have communication or discussion about what you liked and what you didn't like. But yeah, I think that's it. Let me think. Yeah, that's it. Y'all have a great day. Thank you so much for coming, and I'll see you next time. Bye.